the storm battering Brookshire showed no signs of relenting. Wind lashed the trees and rain flew sideways as thunder shook the window panes of the sleepy downtown shops. Inside the gas station store, the flashing blue and red police lights provided the only illumination now that the power had cut out. A grizzled veteran detective, assigned to lead the investigation into the robbery homicide, carefully stepped around the two rookie officers still unconscious on the tile floor. "What a damn mess," he muttered, taking in the scene. The pool of blood spread around the young clerk's body had begun to coagulate. Shotgun shell casings littered the ground nearby. The detective noticed the empty bracket on the wall where a security camera had been mounted. "So you took the surveillance tape, you sneaky bastard," he said under his breath, impressed by the perp's foresight. After interviewing the dazed officers, he had a suspect profile in mind: male, approximately 60 to 70 years old, disguising himself as a harmless elderly man. But looks were deceiving. The perpetrator possessed physical strength and combat skills on par with a trained assassin. In the back storage room, the detective discovered the store's paper logs documenting inventory and deliveries. On a hunch, he tracked down the supplier and driver who had restocked this location earlier that fateful day. The nervous young delivery man recounted his eerie experience with an odd older gentleman hours before the robbery. "Guy gave me the creeps, kept asking weird questions as I unloaded boxes. Seemed to watch my every move." Back at the police station, the detective finally had a solid lead. Local cameras had captured the delivery truck arriving at the home of a reclusive resident fitting the description. A Mr. Aldo Krieger. "We've got him now, boys," the detective told his squad as they geared up to raid Krieger's residence, hoping to recover the stolen tape and shotgun before the trail went cold. As the convoy raced through the stormy night, red and blue lights flashing, the detective thought back on the 15 cold cases bearing eerie similarities to tonight's events. All those hours spent trying unsuccessfully to identify that phantom killer. But his gut told him they finally had a big break. Tonight, if they played it right, they could catch the sadistic murderer he was certain had eluded capture for decades right under their noses. The police squad arrived at the secluded home of Aldo Krieger nestled deep in the woods outside Brookshire. One officer approached the decrepit front porch to knock while the others took tactical positions. No response came from within the dilapidated house. The lead detective nodded, giving the go-ahead to breach. The officer on the porch reared back and kicked in the weathered wooden door. It splintered easily under his boot. The squad poured in, swiftly clearing the few rooms of the derelict home. No sign of anyone present. The sparse furnishings were caked under layers of dust. It seemed no one had occupied this place in years. "Son of a bitch played us," the detective growled, realizing Krieger must have provided a false address. Their one solid lead had evaporated. Just as the team prepared to retreat, one officer called out from the cellar stairwell. A room hidden below the house revealed disturbing secrets. The concrete walls were covered in disturbing drawings and occult symbols. A makeshift altar held candles, goat skulls, arcane texts, and other ritualistic items. "What the hell was this guy into?" muttered the detective as he snapped photos. Dusting for prints would likely prove pointless given the state of disuse of the house. But this occult den suggested a perpetrator with deeply disturbed predilections rather than an ordinary thief. After scouring the sinister underground lair for any other clues, the officers filed back out into the storm, frustrated by this suspect's uncanny ability to evade capture. The detective stared up at the pitch-black sky, rain pelleting his weathered face. A flash of lighting briefly illuminated the outline of the surrounding forest. He pondered how many more victims might be hidden in those dense woods, sacrificed by the zealous rituals of Aldo Krieger. For tonight, though, the trail had gone cold once more. But someday soon, the detective would catch up to this ghost-like killer. He had to bring closure to the families of those lost innocent lives. For now, he could only hope Krieger's appetite for carnage had been satiated for the night. But in his gut, he knew that out there roamed a predator who would never stop hunting. Back at the police station, the detective sat alone in the darkened office, poring over the sparse files of the unsolved cold cases potentially linked to the gas station killer. 15 victims over 20 years, all strikingly similar MOS men, women, young, old, various walks of life. The only pattern was the meticulous execution and lack of forensic evidence. One file contained a witness statement from a man who claimed a masked attacker spared his life after a roadside encounter. It was their only account of someone crossing paths with the suspect and living. The detective tracked down the witness, now a reclusive shut-in clearly still haunted by that chance meeting years ago. After some coaxing, the man recounted his late-night drive home interrupted by a vehicle collision he believed was intentional. The guy seemed to appear out of nowhere. Came right at my car, then blocked the road. I thought it was road rage, until he got out wearing that freaky mask. I just knew I was a dead man. But he said something about that not being my fate, and vanished into the woods. The more the detective learned about this particular personality profile, the more he realized they were dealing with no mindless thug. This was someone highly trained, intelligent, with seemingly enormous patience to watch and wait for the perfect opportunity. There must be some triggering event that caused him to break pattern and hastily strike the gas station store. The old clerk's unexpected interference perhaps led to a deviation from the meticulous rituals. It was the first concrete mistake the killer had made. The detective now understood hunting this particular beast would be a game of wits, not force. He poured himself a coffee, preparing for a long night ahead, planning his next strategic move. A move that he hoped might finally ensnare the elusive phantom who had long haunted Brookshire. The detective sat waiting in a shadowy booth at the back corner of Tony's Tavern, a dingy downtown dive bar. He checked his watch for what felt like the 100th time that night. It was approaching 1 a.m., but he knew the man he awaited often kept late hours. After reviewing the sparse case files, the detective had honed in on a local vagrant named Willie Morris as a potential person of interest. Willie was well known around town as the guy to see for acquiring various illegal substances and contraband. He also had a reputation as one who knew everyone's comings and goings throughout Brookshire. If anyone had insight into the gas station killer, it was him. At 1:30, the front door creaked open and a disheveled-looking Willie shuffled in. The detective beckoned him over, sliding a wad of cash across the table. Willie's eyes went wide, greedily snatching up the bills and quickly pocketing them. "Talk to me, Willie. There's more where this came from if you got something useful." Willie eagerly recounted rumors he'd heard that a new drug ring was aiming to push into Brookshire, led by a suspicious character called the Alchemist. According to the accounts, this guy appeared seemingly out of the blue, intent on controlling all illicit commerce in the region through brutally violent means. The Alchemist already had numerous sellers and users terrified into obedience by public displays of horrific brutality. But Willie had yet to lay eyes on the man himself. They say he sees and hears everything in this town. Got a network of eyes always watching. No one so much as takes a piss without this freak knowing about it. The detective slid Willie another stack of bills, now convinced he was describing the gas station killer. As Willie departed into the night, the detective knew one thing for certain. The time had come to set a trap for the Alchemist. Over the next few weeks, the detective put his plan into motion to draw out the Alchemist by creating the illusion of a new player in Brookshire's criminal underworld. He recruited a few trusted officers willing to go off-book for this covert op. They began discreetly reaching out to known dealers and informants, spreading seeded rumors that a ruthless ex-con named Decker had just been released from prison and was coming for the Alchemist's territory. Decker was settling old scores and wouldn't stop until he controlled the Brookshire drug trade. Of course, Decker was a completely fictional identity the detectives crafted through false information and staged exchanges. But they knew word would reach the Alchemist about this fabricated threat. Sure enough, after a few weeks the first sign appeared that their ploy was working. A mutilated corpse appeared in the city square, posed deliberately. The detectives confirmed it was the body of one of the men they'd used to leak details about Decker's return. The bold public display told them the Alchemist had taken the bait. He was ready to defend his turf at all costs. Now they just needed to orchestrate a confrontation on their own terms. The team picked an abandoned warehouse on the edge of town for the setup. The large open space allowed tactical advantages for the waiting officers. They spent days wiring the building with surveillance and readying weapons and body armor. Finally, the night arrived. A tip was anonymously leaked that Decker would be at the warehouse to broker a major deal. Now to wait and see if their adversary would surface to confront the fabricated threat himself. The trap was set. The final play of this deadly chess match between cop and killer was about to unfold. A torrential downpour drowned out the silence around the abandoned warehouse on the night the detective finally came face to face with the elusive killer. Officers took positions hidden throughout the building, weapons trained on the exits. The scene was set to ensnare the alchemist once and for all. Around midnight, a solitary figure entered the warehouse, his footsteps echoing across the vast empty space. The detective observed from his concealed vantage point as the man methodically swept the interior, searching for his fictional adversary Decker. When it became clear the space was vacant except for himself, the man froze. In a blur too fast for the eye to track, he spun around, hurling a knife with lethal accuracy towards the detective's hiding spot. It was only blind luck that the blade sunk into a pipe inches from the detective's face. "Did you really think your pathetic scheme could fool me?" the figure bellowed, his voice reverberating through the darkness. On the detective's signal, the officers emerged with weapons drawn, quickly surrounding the man. Floodlights flipped on, illuminating his grotesque mask. "Remove your mask and get down on the ground, now," the lead officer ordered. But their suspect only chuckled, a bone-chilling sound. "Oh, I'll remove it. But it won't make a difference. You're all already dead inside." With that ominous proclamation, he yanked off the mask to reveal the horribly disfigured face beneath. The detective recoiled in shock. It was a face no one could recognize, because not an inch of human skin remained. The thing that had been masquerading as a man peeled away the rest of its flesh suit disguised to reveal the true demonic entity underneath. It unleashed an inhuman roar and chaos erupted. Gunfire peppered the creature to no effect as it tore through the horrified squad. The last thing the detective saw as the darkness engulfed his vision were the rows of razor-sharp teeth descending toward him. The officers never stood a chance against this ancient evil. It had lured them here by exploiting their own arrogance. Now the last living souls who knew its secrets were silenced forever. The next morning, local news reported a mysterious explosion at the old warehouse. No cause could be determined, and no remains were recovered from the charred debris. The evil presence returned to the shadows, its disguise and anonymity preserved. And the deadly game of cat and mouse would begin anew.